Hello everybody, Joe here with Garden of Bloom. On today's video, I'm going to give you guys a backyard tour. It is fall 2020. We are coming out of a scorching hot summer here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. I'm in growing zone 9B. Just to preface this here, most of the things that are planted in the backyard were planted in 2016. To give you guys kind of a timeline on how old a lot of this stuff is. I have added a few things here and there over the years. I'll highlight the things that are more recently planted. So let's go check it out and take a closer look. Okay, I'll start here with one of my canistels, Seedlings. And it's looking pretty green, starting to put out a little bit of growth here as we've cooled down this fall. Still really small for being in the ground for a couple years. And I'll show you this in comparison to my container grown, the difference in size. But here it is, maybe 2.5 feet. Next to it is my Takal Sapote. Had this since 2016. And as you can see, it's done really well throughout the summer, really green. It's flowered a few times. It still has some flower buds on it. I'm hoping maybe I'll get some sort of fruit set on some of these. I had one about a month ago, but it ended up dropping off. I've had one fruit on this so far, and that was this spring I harvested that. Here's my Bradenton Loquat. Came out of the summer, nice. No real burn or anything on it. It's gotten pretty tall, and it's starting to get ready to flower, to bud out here. My Seedless wood Sapote. And these Sapoteas, I mean, they look great for what we've had this summer, the extreme heat and everything else. I mean, really green. This is flowered continuously for the first time. Usually it just flower in the spring and that would be it, but now it's been flowering all year round, but no fruit set, which is disappointing. And I believe I purchased this as like a 1 gallon starter tree in 2016. Okay, there's my Indonesian seedless guava there. And you can see it's leaning pretty badly. Probably stake this up a little bit better. But it's actually trying to grow into the sun. You can see there's an opening there, and the rest over here is pretty shaded. So it's trying to reach out there for the sunlight. I haven't had any fruit set on this since I put it in the ground. I grew it in the container for a couple years, and then I put it in the ground, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And since then I haven't had any fruit. I had fruit set when it was in a container, but the fruit was awful. Okay, down here is a lemon drop seedling, growing extremely slow. I think that's maybe about a year old from seed now. A little volunteer loquat seedling from last year I just left there. Here is my raspberry blackberries. Just sprawling out everywhere. I tried to trellis, you can see it kind of fell over there. I didn't do a very good job. And now I've just kind of let them just do whatever here. Here's my Subel white Sapote. This is growing more of like a little bush here. It's not very tall, but it is filling out. It's put on a lot more growth this last year or so. The first like probably 2 or 3 years it was extremely slow growing, but now it's starting to do a little bit more. But it is in a pretty shaded area. All these trees have kind of outgrown it. It's not in a good spot. These like a lot more sun than it's getting. Here is my red hybrid Java Acaba. I did a video recently about, I want to say a month and a half ago, where I transplanted this into a 15-gallon container from a 7-gallon. And I did kind of bust up the root ball a bit when I transplanted it, so I was a little bit concerned that maybe it would suffer from that, but you can see new growth coming out here. and it looks pretty good. All that white stuff is bird droppings on it, but otherwise, I mean, this looks great. This has been grown from seed. I can't remember exactly when I started this. It's at least 2 years old, maybe 3. Here's the Soursop. Come around here, the light's kind of beaming in here, but better angle here. So you can see it got beat up a little bit. This spot got a little bit more sun than I anticipated here, but I just left it here. And our summer was extremely brutal this year, really dry, extremely hot, consistently over 100. We had like no relief this year, no monsoons or anything. So the tropicals kind of suffered a bit because of that. And I've already had some pretty cold nights. Around Halloween, we got down to the upper 30s. And I believe a couple other nights since then has been maybe 40, upper 30s-ish at night. And I haven't moved this around yet. Typically I'd get this like in the garage if it gets too cold, but a little bit of cold damage on some of these leaves already. So there's a Soursop. Wedged back in here is my early grande peach tree. And you can see some of the fall colors on it. These deciduous trees are starting to drop their leaves now, which is normal. I'm hoping we get enough chill hours to get good crops. It's supposed to be a warm winter, so we'll see. Good for the tropicals, not so great for your stone fruit trees here. Here is my Sprite Delight cherry plum. This one still hasn't really started to go dormant yet, still pretty green. Okay, so here's my container grown canistel seedling, and you can see the size difference on this from the ones in the ground. So definitely our soil conditions impact the growth of these tropical fruit trees due to the high pH, the clay. Not really the best kind of soil for these kinds of trees, or really a lot of trees in general. So you really want to make sure you're adding a lot of compost, sulfur, nutrients to the soil. But there it is. I mean, quite a bit of size difference on that. Here's my Car Navel Orange. Got this as a 15-gallon tree in 2016, and it's yet to produce any fruit. Again, it's getting a bit more shade than I'd like for a citrus tree, but it's filled out a lot. It's gotten pretty big here, bushy, it looks really green, healthy. So hopefully this year will be the year that it starts producing. Here's one of my African Pride Atamoyas grown from seed. Come around here, and this has gotten large too, but the cold will kind of prune this back for me. A lot of these outer edges of the tree will get hit by the cold, I'm sure, and then I'll have to prune it back a bit so it keeps this tree manageable in size. But I don't cover this or protect it anymore or anything. I just let it go, and it seems to push through our winters. My raised bed gardens here. Here is my Cherry mango here going in the pot. My Meyer Lemon that looks really bad right now. I don't know what's going on. I've struggled with this tree. It seems to do this yellowing a lot, drops leaves, and has just been real finicky for me. I've had it for several years. It does still produce lemons. I've harvested quite a few. You can see some there that are about ready to harvest. So it'll produce, it just, I don't know what it is. I've fertilized it consistently. You know, I've tried backing off on the water, thinking I'm overwatering it. I've tried giving it more water, thinking I'm underwatering it. But whatever I do, it really seems to be a sensitive tree for whatever reason. I moved this around a little bit too, so even the sun exposure may have done something. Here's one of my Violet de Bordeaux figs growing in a little pot here, and it has filled out a lot. This has put on a ton of growth over the last few months. I've even pruned this back a little bit. You can see that branch there I cut back. Okay, there's my Sherwood Jujube, and it's lost a ton of leaves already. It's pretty yellow now. There's some nice fall colors for you. This tends to be the first one to drop its leaves for the winter and the last one to wake up in my yard. My Parfianca Pomegranate also has some yellowing going on, dropping leaves for the fall or for the winter. Still have some fruit on it. Did a recent video on that. My Black Mission fig here. I'm gonna prune this guy back. All my figs are in containers, and you can see it's dropping leaves as well, getting ready for winter. So I have a couple other figs wedged in here. I'll come around. It's kind of hard to distinguish between the three of them, but there's another Violet de Bordeaux from cutting that I started a couple years ago, as well as a Peter's honey fig. And here's my Tango Mandarin. This was newly planted this year, and it's put on some nice growth. See some of this new growth here coming on right now. So this is getting bigger, filling out, doing well here. And I intentionally had all these figs here to kind of shade it, give it some afternoon shade. This spot here is about due west facing right there. So the afternoon sun comes down through here, so that those figs have helped shade it out, so I didn't have to put any shade structure up this year. Okay, back in this west corner here is Barbados Cherry. It's flowered a ton this year, but I've only had a few cherries, so that's been a bit disappointing. I did put it in the ground this year though, so maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know, getting acclimated. I had it growing in a container for several years, but I got sick of moving these tropicals around so much, so I've tried to put as much in the ground as possible. I'm hoping all these brick walls and everything will keep it warm enough through the winter. Here is my Barbie pink guava. Again, kind of hard to see because it's next to my ash tree and everything, but pretty good size. I prune this back regularly to keep it manageable here. I upped it into this 30-gallon container. It wasn't a 15 for a long time. I've had this for 4 years now, quite a while. It produces consistently. You can see flowers there. I'm not a huge fan of the fruit though, but it does produce consistently. Here is my Dwarf Everbearing Mulberry. You can see that's starting to drop leaves in yellow as well, go dormant. I will prune all my stone fruit and deciduous trees back aggressively just before spring. Here's my Peruvian white guava. I definitely like the flavor of this one better. And this one's in the ground. It's really nice size here, probably pushing 12 feet. But again, like my Atamoyas, the frost, the cold will probably take this back by a quarter or a third at least, so it helps just kind of naturally prune these trees for me. But I've seen a lot of flower buds on this as well, so I may get a spring crop. Last year I didn't get that. Here's my Jamaican Cherry, and this has gotten really tall, which I'm not happy about, but I pruned this back aggressively this year. You can see like the area I cut down in here, and all this is new growth just from this summer. So I try to keep it manageable in a container because unfortunately these are pretty sensitive to cold, and I've seen a lot of these trees get killed off because of our cold here, cold snaps. And so I'll move this around as needed to protect it in the winter. Otherwise, this would be like one of the perfect fruit trees to grow here in Arizona. If it wasn't for it being so cold sensitive, so it does great in our heat and our sun and everything else, produces really well. Here's my other African Pride Atamoya, growing in a container. This is a east-facing wall, so it'll get shade in the afternoon, but I kind of put it up against the wall to keep it a little bit warmer on those cold nights. Again, I didn't move this last year, so I'm planning to just leave it here and see what happens. My Moroccan Mango. This is my seedling mango. It's gotten pretty big. Little beat up here. Again, our summer sun was just extreme. 2 years ago, I stopped shading these mangoes, and it didn't look as bad last year, but this year it got pretty beat up from the sun. So I'm hoping to build a structure around here, around all my mangoes here, that I can leave up permanently, mainly for frost protection, but I'm also gonna probably put up a shade canopy at times as well. There's my kit mango there. Lemongrass filling out here, I need to cut back. And the Gary mango. Here's my sugar apple, and I'm intending to move that back in there with the mangoes, so I don't have to move this inside at all anymore. You can see it's just gotten really large, and I put it in a big container here, so it's going to be harder to move around. The winds have really thrashed this tree, and it's leaning over like a lot of my container trees, especially the Anonas. I don't know if it's their root structures aren't quite as strong or what it is, but it seems like all my Anonas have had problems with the winds and leaning over. You can see a little bit beat up here. Here's my wax apple. This is also fairly young tree. I've had it for about a year. It's put on a lot of growth. I had this mainly in shade this summer and moved this out about a month ago into a lot more sun. And again, I don't know if it was the cold nights, if this is cold damage, or if it's just from moving it out into the sun without really acclimating it into a more sunny location. So it could be sunburn or it could be cold damage. I believe this is the Black Pearl variety. My last Canistel seedling. This one's grown a little bit bigger. Filling out there. Probably more like 3.5 feet tall, 4 feet tall maybe, 3.5. All right, check me out at gardenluma.com for more tips on gardening and growing fruit trees, especially in hot, dry climates. Thanks for watching.